Live from your April Fool's holiday headquarters in Austin, Texas, it's Direct to DVDog with Danny and Alex. Hello, Alex.
Oh, hello, Danny.
Tonight we have a pretty unique format. We are going to play Beethoven's Second for the Super Nintendo.
Oh.
And while we do that, we are going to be discussing the Beethoven film series, which Alex and I are both very familiar with.
Extremely so.
Title chosen by our faithful patrons, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh man. This looks great already.
No, it doesn't.
So this is published by High Tech Expressions, and if you're familiar with any of their games, you know you want to stay away from this one. This is developed by RSP, a longtime high-tech contractor, who also worked on Super Nintendo games like The Hunt for Red October and Tom and Jerry.
Oh.
These days, they're better known for their unreleased games, which include Bobby's World for the Super Nintendo.
I know that one.
And the excellent Steven Seagal is the Final Option.
I love the Final Option.
So those games didn't get released, but this one did. This is based on the second Beethoven movie, which we'll discuss in a bit. In the second one, Beethoven finds a lady Saint Bernard, and they make a bunch of puppies. And in this game, they lose the puppies, and you gotta find them.
God damn it, how'd you lose them?
I don't know. Their dogs aren't very good caretakers, you know?
I guess.
Oh, and here we go. So, I figure I should discuss the game a little bit before moving on to the Beethoven at large. But, yeah, it's a side-scrolling video game where you control a massive Saint Bernard. He's not very maneuverable. He can duck, he can shake, he can do that, and he can bark. It's a charge-up attack. A la Guile's Sonic Boom, and so on. Now the problem with Beethoven...
Sonic Boom!
The problem with Beethoven is he's a little ungainly. He doesn't really move around all that well, and he gets stuck on fences, and that hurts him. I can imagine that would hurt, just a St. Bernard slamming his midsection into the top of a fence. There's also dogs, I mean cats, and you can growl at them. Everything in this game takes multiple hits, though, which is kind of frustrating. Luckily, barking at him tends to stun lock him. Can't believe I'm discussing this game's mechanics, but here we are.
I was gonna say, you're taking it much serious. You're
Overall,
taking this game very seriously, and that's very important.
I have to get this out of the way, because it's not difficult to fully explain this game. What I did here is I walked in a sprinkler, and when Beethoven gets wet, yeah, screen-clearing super attack. Much like a specific scene in the original Beethoven, where he shakes off his dirty ass and ruins an entire room.
Oh, God.
That's just what Beethoven does. Gotta go. So far, pretty good. One thing you should know is that I am definitely cheating. I am cheating the hell out of this game. Not too much. Beethoven can still die, but he does have infinite lives.
So, we got some info from Abby in chat. You know, what else this team is better known for?
Yes?
Moving to Arizona, renaming and reforming as Running with Scissors.
You're shitting me.
That's according to Abby in chat.
RSP equals Running with Scissors. I don't know how to feel about that one. That kind of changes my whole worldview. I can imagine working on Tom and Jerry and Beethoven's Second just kind of breaks you as a person, and leads to the creation of something like Postal.
That is
Suddenly
amazing.
It makes a lot more sense.
Thank you so much for that info.
I appreciate that, yeah.
I'm sorry, my entire worldview has changed,
That's
and
really
I'm just
good.
kind of reveling in this.
And each time you find a puppy, you have to spend the next level on an escort mission. An escort mission with a giant, ungainly dog and his stupid progeny.
Be nice.
And around this time, the trees really start to hate you. They start throwing apples, like, right as you pass underneath. This game's kind of cruel. Oh, God. Now, what does this do, you might ask? I don't know. I legit don't know. That item that I just picked up.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't really show you what it does it?
Whoop!
Well, thank God
See
your
what I
puppy
mean?
can't get hurt. Your puppy can just, like, get hit by apples all day, and it's
Some
fine.
fucking I want to be the guy shit here.
What are you doing with your puppy?
Oh shit! I'm clearing a path.
Okay.
That's something you gotta do as a loving
Okay.
father.
Also, Fred Porter did the music. Thanks, Arnold Drummer.
Okay, generally, the high path has health pickups. Not in this case, though. Yeah, so the Super Nintendo, it was lousy with these games. It had games based on Home Alone, Almost Bobby's World, just all kinds of flash-in-the-pan licenses that just instantly died.
There was also that Twin Peaks game that they were going to make for the NES.
Yeah, that's... How would that have even worked? I don't know. This game is taking all of my mental capacity. But I do want to at least beat this level before we move on. Beethoven. Hey, we made it! There's Beethoven's beloved... What was her name? Lady
Oh my
Dog?
God, how did I forget her name?
Was it Petunia? It was Petunia or Tulip or something like that.
I think it was like maybe Tulip.
Yeah.
I gotta
Anyway,
look
here's
this
your
up.
dog.
Hold on.
Alright, we've saved our first puppy.
Missy is her name.
Missy is the Lady
dog,
Beethoven.
yeah.
So
The Beethoven.
So, as I mentioned before, I do have infinite lives. Real old schoolers will be happy to know that I downloaded a cheats file from this game from Zophar's domain, which
That
somehow
makes me
still
so
exists
happy.
and still makes cheat files that are compatible with Wii emulators. So, thank you, Zophar. I appreciate it.
Oh, God.
Infinite lives, so I'm basically going to be barreling through this game as quickly as possible. Not really paying that much attention to what I'm doing because we have bigger matters to discuss.
Yes, we do.
As the newly formed podcast Direct to DVDog, it's our obligation to tell you about Beethoven, a truly landmark film in the world of dog films.
It is, though. It kind of is.
Alex, you want to roll off a few facts that I wrote down here for you
All right.
to start things off?
Well, okay, let's see. So the movie was written by John Hughes under a pseudonym, and I want to say the pseudonym was Eduardo something or other. Actually, let me.
Yeah, it was a Spanish influence name for some reason.
Yeah, it was.
He
really
wanted to
weird.
leave
It
no
was,
trace of his involvement. John Hughes, I think, director of Home Alone.
Yeah, John. Oh gosh, yeah, John Hughes. You know, did a lot of films. He did 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
And he wrote Beethoven.
Under a pseudonym. So
A
that's
real Renaissance man,
yeah.
if there ever was one.
And it was directed by Brian Levant, who is famous for directing Jingle All the Way, The Flintstones, Snow Dogs, makes sense, and Puchinsky.
Yeah, Puchinsky.
Puchinsky.
If you get a chance, look up Puchinsky on YouTube. It's this weird failed TV pilot starring Adam Sandler alongside a talking bulldog.
No. You're thinking Dog Police.
Oh, no, that is Dog Police.
Sandler.
Puchinsky
is Puchinsky. I think was actually. I want to say that was released. That was aired at some point. While I don't think Dog Police was, but Puchinsky is about a cop dies and gets reincarnated into a dog body. Now this is different from Dog Police, which is about dogs from outer space, based on an '80s novelty song. Puchinsky.
All true.
All true. I'm not making any of this up.
Recently, that director, what's his name?
Brian Levant?
It's probably not Puchinsky. Brian Levant, his most recent film is A Christmas Story 2, an originally penned follow-up to the classic Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. I hear it's god-awful. Don't even watch it.
I am so curious now.
But his next film, he actually has a couple of dog films in post-production, so he's set to redeem himself pretty soon.
Back to
We
the
have hope
dog
for
movie
him.
grind. So, the movie stars Beethoven, and Bonnie Hunt is the wife of the main character, Charles Grodin, who is the father of the Newton family.
Yeah, so really there's two main characters. There's Beethoven, obviously, and then there's the dad of the family, played by Charles Grodin. What's his movie name?
George Newton.
George Newton, head of the Newton clan.
Yeah.
He lives in his two-story suburban house with his wife, a teenage daughter, a preteen son, and a really younger daughter. She's something like 5 years old or something. Anyway, the movie starts. Let's go over the plot a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
Hopefully,
well, before-
hopefully you've seen this movie, but we'll
yeah.
refresh your memory just in case.
So George Newton, we'll talk about his business later, but so let's start the movie off here. So it starts off with Beethoven escaping from a shady dog pound and just like doing a bunch of wild dog antics or whatever, and then just straight up just walking into the Newtons' home, and he's like, he's their dog now.
Yeah, it starts off with him in a pet store. Nobody wants to adopt him except for dog nappers. They sneak in and steal a bunch of dogs. You don't know what they want with him. At least at first.
At least, yeah.
And then Beethoven escapes, and he finds himself in the home of the Newtons. He introduces himself to the family by just crawling into bed with the little girl, and she's like, cool, we have a dog now.
Yeah, and like everyone, including the mom, and everyone's like, hey, we have a dog now. And the dad's like, I don't know about this. This is a large, very large dog, and...
Yeah, it should be noted George Newton, the patriarch of the family, is a neat freak. He's kind of obsessive, like really punctual, like... Just the kind of guy, he wants everything in order. The kind of order that having a Beethoven around you can't have.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not so hot.
I've died so many times on this scene, but I don't care. We have to continue the discussion.
We have to. So what happens? So Beethoven then, after he hangs out with the family for a while, the little girl who's taking piano lessons just starts like fucking around the piano and plays a Beethoven riff, and the dog like starts barking, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, his name's Beethoven now."
And he's Beethoven.
He is Beethoven.
And after they name him, thus follows a montage of Beethoven growing up. And that's when you get to see just how big of a disaster this dog is.
He is a complete fucking disaster.
He is a huge asshole. He bites furniture, he steals food.
Steals food a lot.
In one scene, it's shown him resting in the mom and dad's bed, and he's just like filthy.
He's
just
starts... fucking disgusting.
And when Charles Grodin intervenes, of course the dog stands up and shakes himself off all over everything, ruining everything.
Yeah, this is the rollover Beethoven montage, as Sizab mentions it, or AKA the Charles Grodin's life is shit montage.
There are many montages like that in the movie.
Yes.
That's the basic conflict between George Newton and Beethoven the dog.
Yeah, basically it's kind of common in dog movies where, you know, one person doesn't like the dog, but the rest of the family does, and yeah, the dad's like, I don't know, and one that they have to warm up to the dog, but...
And here it's revealed that everybody loves this dog.
Everyone!
But the kids don't take care of him. It's Charles Grodin's responsibility, and he doesn't like that. He does not appreciate it.
He just absolutely well, to be fair, he has to do most of the work too. And
in addition to running a business, he is the founder of an air freshener company or something.
Remember the 90s when you could just like
when you could do that, just make an air freshener
company. Oh god. So
around this time, Beethoven starts to really prove himself to the audience. He's it shows him going around town, like, getting food from people and stuff. Like, he'll go to the butcher and he'll be like, here you go, Beethoven, here's a steak.
I love this dog, yeah.
And he also endears himself to the children of the Newton family in many ways. The teenage daughter, Beethoven helps her talk to a boy she likes at school. The younger son, he frightens off some bullies who are harassing him. And the little girl, he straight up saves her life after she's about to drown.
Okay, so there is a variant. So one of the plot points is that because George Newton has an air freshener company that he wants to work on.
I did it. That was a risk, but it paid off.
The mom is going back to, I don't know if she's going back to, was it lawyers? Is she going back to school or I think she's going back to the workplace.
She's going back to the workplace, yeah. And the first day they give the little girl to a babysitter. The babysitter just lets the kid drown.
Yeah, the babysitter literally, like, is playing Lady Marmalade in her own little world while the kid is outside drowning. And
but luckily Beethoven escapes his enclosure and saves the girl in a scene...
from 5 blocks away!
By the way, if you watch that scene, watch where Beethoven is dragging the little girl out of the water. It is the fakest fucking dog you've ever seen in your life. It's really good.
It is so great. They got, like, the worst dog puppet imaginable.
Just dragging a messy dog puppet through a pool.
Anyway, so yeah, the mom sees that, like, Beethoven has saved her, whatever, the girl's life, and then, like, the mom comes over and is like, hey, I need to not go to work anymore, and I need to provide for the family more at home. And yeah, I'll go into some of the theming of the movie later.
Luckily, at that point, George is visited by a couple of venture capitalists who want to buy out his air freshener
That's
company.
like David Duchovny and that other lady.
Yeah, the venture capitalists, one of them is David Duchovny of The X-Files. And
David Duchovny, venture capitalist.
He is a real highlight of that film, let me tell you. He puts in a pretty good performance. Everything seems to be going well. The family doesn't really like these people. They seem to be kind of assholes. But Beethoven takes care of things by wrapping his leash around the table where the venture capitalists are sitting, and then just yanking them around town. Like he somehow wraps his leash around their chairs, takes them for a ride around town, just drags them until they never come back.
Yeah, it's just because Beethoven somehow knows that he's read the contract, and he knows that he understands contract law better than Charles Grodin at this point.
We'll get into that a little bit more later. But yeah, at this point, the dog's in the shithouse again. Charles Grodin wants him out. He's had enough of this friggin' dog that's ruining his life, and he's done. He's done with it. At this point, the kids try to play nice. They try to show, okay, we'll take care of the stupid asshole dog. He's actually a nice dog. Come on, Dad, don't give him away. And he's finally all like, well, okay, fine. We'll keep the big stupid asshole dog. Everything seems to be going just fine. Until Beethoven is visited by a vet he saw earlier in the movie. The vet encounters him in his enclosure in the Newtons' backyard and fakes a dog attack. He straight up slugs Beethoven in the face.
He does! He fucking punches a dog puppet and then slathers his arm with fake blood and starts screaming, and then he tells Beethoven, hey, you suck, or whatever. I don't know.
And he's all like, oh, I've seen this in St. Bernard's. They just go crazy. It's for the sake of your family. It's gonna happen again, buddy.
We have to, put this dog down, or because this dog is just gonna suck, because St. Bernards are just natural killers. Dude, they just are.
That was a slick move, though.
Which is a weird line, but you know.
So, feeling he has no choice, Charles Groot, feels like he has to give the dog away.
Charles Goodboy.
He gives it away to the vet, drives home without the dog, and everyone in his family hates him. They basically disown him. The little girl straight up calls him a dog killer.
She does!
It is truly heart-wrenching. So much so that George Newton has a change of heart, goes back to the vets with his family, and he's all like, hey, give me my dog back. I changed my mind. Vet says, sorry, he's already been put down. Nothing I could do. Charles Grodin notices that the vet's arm is somehow fully healed after his terrible attack with Beethoven, and figures out he's lying. So he punches him. Punches him in the face. Doc runs off, and the family, thirsty for blood, gives chase.
Okay, so you're forgetting the part where you don't. Did you explain why this vet wants this dog? Because this is kind of insane.
Yeah, at this point, this is the final climactic moment of the film. The vet is chased off to his secret hideout, which is revealed to be the place where the dog nappers were taking all the dogs at the first part of the movie. At this point, it's revealed that he wants to test a St. Bernard skull, specifically. He wants to shoot it with high-caliber military-grade ammunition to test the capabilities of the bullet.
Not
specifically,
ballistics,
this is an exploding bullet, thus it requires a thick St. Bernard skull in order to test it out. It's science. It's airtight, all right? So to do this, he kidnapped a bunch of dogs, intending to, shoot them, kill them. Like that. Just drop them off a...
He's literally kidnapping dogs to shoot in the face for the U.S. military or whatever.
Luckily, Charles Groovy decides to drop in from the skylight. He tackles the doctor. Right as the doctor is about to shoot Charles Grodin, the dad, the young son takes control of the family vehicle, punches through the warehouse wall, and in the brouhaha somehow upends a table containing about a couple dozen hypodermic needles, which launch themselves into the evil scientist's chest, killing him.
It is the most fucked up scene.
It is surprisingly graphic and violent and very upsetting, especially for young children. It shows a first-person view of all these hypodermic needles launching themselves into a grown human man's chest. Very, very upsetting. The next scene shows the dog nappers, one of whom is Stanley Tucci. They get away. but they're summarily killed by a couple of junkyard dogs, assuming.
Yeah. It's... Oh, boy.
It's a very surprisingly violent end to what was, before that, a generally family-friendly movie, except for a couple of parts.
And then the Newtons all kind of gather together in, like... They gather together at the end being like, oh, I was so wrong, this dog is great, we love this dog, I'm Charles Grodin, and killing this man because of this dog has brought our family together like never before.
Here's the messed up part. They free all the dogs that have been dog-napped by the evil doctor's conspirators, and they take them home. They take them home and adopt them. They live with about 50 dogs, and that's how the movie ends. They all go to sleep in the same bed with 50 dogs. And that's the end of Beethoven.
That just...
Well, so, needless to say, this is one of my favorite films. I saw it in the theater back when it was new, as with Beethoven Second. I am a Beethoven superfan, you might say.
Yes, I also saw Beethoven and Beethoven Second in the theater. And yeah, chat's wondering if we're talking about Beethoven Second or the first one. We're talking about the first
We'll get
one.
to Beethoven Second in a bit.
Yeah.
This was also a favorite film of my young brother, who was about 3 or 4 years old at the time.
Oh, man.
He also saw the movie in the theater, and we bought it on VHS tape, and he played that VHS tape until it broke. I have seen Beethoven something like 50 or 60 times, because you know how kids are about watching movies over and over and over. God damn it. Yes, anyway, I've seen Beethoven a lot, and still, I think it emerges as one of the better dog movies, one of the better entries in the genre. I think it's time to go on to our filmic analysis now.
Yes.
What does it all mean, this whole Beethoven thing?
This whole dog versus man, versus father.
We've seen this strangely violent tale unfold on the giant cinema screen, scaring our children, scarring them for life. But what does it all mean? Well, Alex and I, our theory is that this whole movie is about a struggle of masculinism.
It really is. It's a struggle between the masculinity of Charles Grodin and the masculinity of Beethoven. Because
this guy has very careful, assertive control over his family. He's a very classically masculine dad. He always takes charge, and he's always in control. What gives you less control? A big fucking Saint Bernard ruining everything about your life.
And that your family and your wife and your children like more than you because they assert themselves more than you do. Like, seriously, that's kind of part of the film.
So the movie is basically a series of scenes where Beethoven is dunking on Charles Grodin, ruining his clothes, his furniture, his business deals. The thing that's interesting about this movie, though, is that Beethoven is a truly loathsome character, but he tries to redeem himself in the eyes of his family through all the things we said before. He saves the little girl's life, protects the kid from bullies, helps the teenage girl talk to her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. All this is done out of unselfishness. Beethoven does this because he knows it'll help his family. He also tries to help Charles Grodin in his own way by destroying the venture capitalists.
Yes,
This scene is one of the most mystifying things I have ever seen in a dog movie, by the way. It shows what happens is that Beethoven... Son of a bitch. Anyway, Beethoven...
It's really hard to do film and story and character analysis, especially on the portrayal of masculinity in John Hughes films, when you're trying to play a high-tech expressions game.
It's surprisingly difficult, yeah. This scene, though, where it shows David Duchovny and his partner discussing things in very frank terms. The family is gone, only Beethoven is watching them, and he's saying something like, yeah, we're going to take over this terrible company, we're going to ruin it, we're going to cheat him out of it, because we're evil. This is what we do. We cheat and we lie and we steal. And for a second, it cuts to Beethoven's face.
It does!
And it shows a look of surprise, as if Beethoven understood what they were saying, and was trying to enact a plan of vengeance.
That's right. Beethoven actually understands how much this contract is going to fuck them up.
He understands human language, and he sets about to right the situation.
And he's smarter than Charles Grodin here, too.
The tragic thing is that this attempt to help out the family is wildly misunderstood, because how can a dog know that venture capitalists are about to screw you over? Mm-hmm. He's just an asshole Saint Bernard who wanted to ruin a dinner party. That's the great sad moment of Beethoven. Like, he can understand what humans do, but he cannot communicate. He can't make things right through words, only actions.
Only violent actions too, as well. They're not all violent, but they're very physical actions. That's all he can really do is physical actions.
He's just a big dog. That's all he can do. What else do I have written down there? Shitty.
God rip.
I'm getting a little upset, but it's okay.
So Beethoven, who's he's proven that he's smarter than Charles. The whole point of Beethoven really is to prove that Beethoven is better than Charles Grodin, and Charles Grodin kind of has to understand and accept that this dog is a better provider for the family in many ways than he is. Because the dad's working, the mom has to get the evil babysitter who ends up trying to kill accidentally killing the kid.
There's a lot of good family drama. Usually, this is just the whole family drama side of these movies is really downplayed in favor of dog action. But of all the ones we've seen, I think this goes into a decent amount of depth. This family has realistic problems. They're facing some sort of financial crisis. And ironically, the big dumb dog is the only thing that can save them. And I think that's what gives the movie a pretty interesting theme.
And like in the end, it's just because a lot of John Hughes movies have a lot of them are like, I'm a teen boy who's like asserting my masculinity and stuff to various degrees. And in this one, like, it's Charles Grodin who needs to be more assertive, more masculine, and the dog
more sure of what he wants.
And
Beethoven, less complacent in his usual habits. And gotta mix things up a little bit,
and this dog who's like a big fucking asshole, basically saves his life. I mean, he turns his family around, and it's very interesting because, like, it just, you could go on and on about this dog. Like, this dog, like the fact that the movie doesn't the fact that the movie wants the mom to stay at home, the fact that there's a lot of weird themes in the movie, but most of all, the main theme is that Beethoven is a better dad than Charles Grodin, and Charles Grodin has to learn how to be just as good as Beethoven. It's kind of...
As far as interpersonal drama goes, and mixed with dog action, I think this movie strikes a pretty good balance. If you go to this movie expecting to see a big asshole dog act like a big asshole, you'll get that.
Oh, definitely.
You'll get plenty of that. But you'll also get a nice little story that your whole family can enjoy. It's not Shakespeare or anything.
Oh God, please don't go into a dog movie expecting Shakespeare. I don't...
Have expectations, is what I'm saying. But you could do far worse, and given the film's legacy and its history, I think it's earned its place in the Dog Movie Hall of Fame. I highly recommend this movie. I think you should watch it.
It's pretty good, yeah.
So Beethoven also spawned a very successful series of films.
These are 8 movies, folks. There are 8 Beethoven movies. I have seen them all. Danny has seen them all.
Yep, we've both seen them all. We've both reflected on them. We have plenty to say about them. But
we do.
We'll spare you all the details. We'll go over these very quickly. Beethoven's Second, which inspired this game, is actually nothing like this game. The puppies do go missing at one point, but it's an evil Cruella de Vil style figure who wants to make him into a coat or something.
Yeah, I think she wants the because there's an evil woman who owns, like, an evil couple owns the lady dog, and like, you're gonna drop that puppy to the...
It wouldn't let me drop him off a cliff.
Please don't.
That's actually good.
Yeah, I vaguely forget that one. Beethoven's Second
was a sequel in the sense that Home Alone 2 was a sequel. There were lots of movies like this back in the 90s where they were all like, how can we continue this story of this beloved movie? Okay, we'll just tell the exact same story again. Only make things basically a little bit different. Beethoven's still a huge asshole. He finds Lady Love somehow, but overall the movie involves him saving his family members from all these perilous situations.
Yeah, Beethoven's Second is one of the few movies where it's just... it's one of the few... I actually wouldn't recommend that one as much for kids, because it's like...
It's much like Final Fight Streetwise. It has a problem with tone.
It really does! Like, there's... At one point, basically... I'm gonna be very vague about it, because I actually really don't like this scene. But there's a scene where the teen girl is in peril from a teen boy, and it's really kind of like, yikes. And but the movie,
you can tell where it's going, and it's nowhere good.
And so what happens is Beethoven has to literally rip the entire house down.
Yep.
So that she can be freed. It is
he rips apart an
unsettling.
entire house. Yeah.
It is not fun. Yeah.
However, on the other side of that coin,
Oh my God,
the
yeah.
young boy is being bullied by some carnies, some young carny children, and he by now he knows Beethoven's ability to scare bullies. So he's all like, "Hey, you want to see this dog do a trick? Sit up, speak." And they're all like, "That's lame. What else can he do?" And he's like, "Oh, okay, Beethoven, bite this guy on the wiener," is what he says. And then the kid scampers away, terrified of a St. Bernard biting off his wiener.
I think at one point Charles Grodin also touches Beethoven's shit and goes like, "It's warm, folks." Or is it the child who touches Beethoven's shit?
I don't remember.
But one of them does. Someone does touch Beethoven's shit. Like literally, Beethoven poops, and they're looking for him to see if it's fresh. They touch it, and they're like, "Ah, it's warm.
Yeah.
Ah, I touch his poo."
Overall, it hits a lot of the same beats as the first movie. A little bit more extreme, unnecessarily so, in my opinion.
But it's basically the same. Plot,
Otherwise,
yeah.
a pretty good follow-up. If you like the original Beethoven, you're gonna like this one too, because it's the same fucking movie. Moving on, Beethoven Second was the end of the film franchise's reign in theaters, because all the other Beethoven movies direct-to-video.
All of
Perfect
them.
for us here at Direct-to-DVDog.
Because we typically stick with directed-video dog movies.
Beethoven's third and fourth kept the Newton family, kept Beethoven, but it recast everybody. No longer does Charles Grodin head the Beethoven movies. Instead, it's your friend and mine, Judge Reinhold. Never an acceptable
Judge
solution
Reinhold.
for anyone. If you're going to swap someone out in your film series, don't replace him with Judge Reinhold. What the hell's wrong with you? Apparently, it took him 2 movies to correct this mistake. Beethoven's fifth still has the Newton family, but George Newton is now played by Dave Thomas. Somehow an even blander white guy than Judge Reinhold.
Okay, so here's something interesting
That's like getting into Tom Bergeron territory right there.
The funny thing about Beethoven's fifth, and it's something that, because intermission is going to be a lot of Beethoven trailers and stuff, so you'll get the plots.
Oh, you'll
of
get to see
then,
these movies.
Yeah. But the thing about Beethoven's fifth is that, so these movies are this is a Universal Studios franchise. The Universal Pictures owns like the rights to Beethoven, and they make the movies. For money reasons, it's very, very cheap for Universal to film movies on their actual set because, you know, they own it, etc., etc. So Beethoven's fifth is very interesting because I think the director was just really happy to be filming on the Universal Studios backlot, and a very large portion of it takes place in, and I shit you not, the old Psycho set. It takes place at Dave
Fuck
Thomas.
Beethoven, you piece of shit! Slipped right off the... Go ahead.
Direct to DVDog and also Angry Video Game Dog.
I hate this dog. This game plays like dog
No,
turds.
not Wendy's Dave Thomas, but Dave Thomas the actor. I wish
Dave
it was
Thomas from the television series Grace Under Fire and others from the 90s. Yeah, you'd know him if you see him, probably.
So Dave Thomas lives in the Norman Bates house, and or at least the facade is a Norman Bates house.
That's pretty amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite things. And the movie set is very, very much just like whatever parts of the Universal Studio, all the most famous parts of the Universal Studios backlot, including one really long shot of the old Back to the Future library, town hall, whatever clock thing.
It was a very cheap movie to make.
Very cheap, but it's interesting because there's like a treasure going. So that's Beethoven's fifth, and then we get to Beethoven's sixth, which is called Beethoven's Big Break. And this movie.
So just to refresh you here, 1 and 2 stone cold classics of the genre. You can't debate that. They're just one of the greatest dog movies. 2 of the greatest dog movies ever made.
Yes.
3 through 5, that's generally regarded as the dark period in the Beethoven timeline. Nobody likes
period of Beethoven.
Nobody likes Judge Reinhold or Dave Thomas. These are just kind
Dave.
of filler movies. They're not awful, but you're kind of wasting your time by watching them. You could be watching Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. Don't waste your time on Beethoven's 3 through 5. On the other hand, Beethoven's holy shit.
Oh my god.
That was almost deadly. So Beethoven 6 is Beethoven's Big Break, and the concept for this movie is one of the best concepts for any dog movie I have ever heard in my life. Okay, so get this. In this movie's world, the original Beethoven is a film that was made in that world. Beethoven's Big Break chronicles the rise of the Saint Bernard who would eventually play Beethoven.
Yeah.
Like, it covers, hey, here's this asshole dog and who steals bacon and ruins his family's house. He would be great for our movie.
Yeah, because instead of accidentally wandering into a random guy's life, he accidentally wanders into a animal trainer who does animal acting for movies.
Yeah, that actually makes more sense.
And then they actually document how, like, they do parallels between the other movies with this dog, and it's actually
also
pretty good.
It's really, as a huge Beethoven fan speaking here, it's kind of surreal seeing the movie's plot basically reinterpreted and rebooted as a fictional sort of thing. It really plays with the idea of what dog movies can be and what purposes they serve within other dog movies.
It's really weird. It's one of the only dog movies about dog movies.
I really enjoyed it. It's really
Yeah.
great. The concept was very well executed. It stayed interesting throughout. And I'm going to say something controversial here. I think it stands up to the original two Beethoven movies.
I actually agree with you.
I think it's a worthy follow-up.
I think, like, the only issues I have with it is the issue I have with every dog movie, the forced romances,
Yeah, that's just something
like
you gotta
that.
expect with direct-to-DVD dog
the
movies.
fact that this was like they had like, okay, these are direct-to-video movies. No one's really expecting anything legit thoughtful out of them, especially anything examining genre. And
Last level, you guys. You think I can do it?
Good luck.
We only got... Oh god, this looks like hell already. Well... Let's continue our discussion in the meanwhile. If Beethoven 6 was surprisingly good and possibly a new high point for the genre, or rather the series, Beethoven 7th is a new low.
He talks and he's voiced by Tom Arnold.
That's really all you gotta say. Beethoven never talks in the other movies, but for this one, because it's a Christmas adventure, he talks, and his voice is Tom Arnold.
And it kind of sucks, and you don't want Beethoven to talk.
No, he doesn't say anything interesting, even. He's just, hey, yeah, I'm that huge asshole dog.
Like, that's the thing, yeah, it's kind of just... I love him going down the slide.
Yeah.
It's just kind of there, really. And
it's a very by-the-numbers expected sequel. Something you wouldn't expect from Beethoven. You have higher expectations.
especially after Beethoven's Big Break, which was actually really interesting for a direct-to-DVD dog movie. It actually tried something with the genre, which very few... anything really does, honestly.
And that's not the end, luckily. Oh my god, Beethoven got crushed by a boulder.
Holy shit, Beethoven.
That's a pretty metal death. Beethoven's 8th, we were not looking forward to.
That's Beethoven's Treasure Tale.
7th, it was a crushing disappointment. We thought we were done with that dog. We thought Beethoven was over. His career was heading nowhere. It's time to ditch the dog. Beethoven's 8th, as it turns out, just okay.
It was better than the Christmas one, but this was just...
It's not a piece of shit like the Christmas story. It's also very safe and by the numbers. It reminds me a lot of the Air Buddies movies, actually.
Oh god,
very generic adventure, stupid jokes that only kids would laugh at. Nothing for the adults.
You want the dark and edgy?
Where's the scene from Beethoven 1 where Beethoven pretends to be Charles Grodin's wife?
And starts making out with him.
Yeah,
and Charles Grodin is like,
they're both
I'm
in
horny
bed.
now.
Beethoven is in bed and Charles Grodin slips into bed with him thinking it's his wife. Beethoven starts licking his ear, and Charles Grodin disgustingly starts saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, you're a dirty girl, aren't you?"
He wants to totally...
And, of course, Beethoven turns around, and it's that huge, disgusting fucking dog.
Again, another thing about Beethoven asserting his masculinity over Charles Grodin. I'm just saying. I'm just gonna keep bringing out these plot points. So, there are no more Beethoven movies.
That's it. We haven't heard anything about a Beethoven's 9th, anything about post-production, pre-production, anything. So for now, the Beethoven film franchise, much like Beethoven himself in this game, is dead.
It's like, there was also a Beethoven animated series that came out around, I have a trailer for that too in the intermission, that came out around 1990, I want to say 3 or 4, and it doesn't feature the puppies, it's just him, and it's your standard 90s tie-in series. It kind of reminds me of the Little Shop of Horrors animated series around the same time, which is another thing you wouldn't think, that actually seems a much more inexplicable children's license than Beethoven.
Dude, there were so many fucked up kids license back then. Do you remember Tales from the Crypt for kids?
You remember? Oh, what was it? Oh God.
Fucking RoboCop the animated series.
Yes, Rambo the
Rambo.
animated series.
Take your kids to see RoboCop. They'll love it. Oh, Daddy, I love that part when that dude exploded.
Yeah, so that's
Beethoven.
Legacy,
That basically covers the history of our favorite Saint Bernard friend, Beethoven. He's had his ups and his downs, but all along he's stuck with us. He is a faithful pooch, and he's got a good heart, even though he's an asshole. I think that basically sums it up.
So
I'm out of things to say about Beethoven, so
I'll take over.
This is now my last life here. Wish me luck.
Okay, good luck.
Great. That was
time to switch
that was really
games.
good.